Welcome everyone. So as we all know, phobia is a kind of anxiety disorder or persistent fear of someone or something. Phobia varies in its kinds from fear of heights or social phobias and other kinds that we all know. But phobia of a religion is really unfamiliar to us. Islamophobia is the hatred towards Islam and Muslims. We haven't really seen Islamophobia in the past years, but nowadays it exists. To know more about this, we asked the people in the streets what do they know about Islamophobia. So let's see.
This exists, yes. Some people are offended, some people are like about the niqab, about just being hijab, yes. Or just the action of praying offends some people.
I've never met an Islamophobic, but I know that they exist because obviously they're all over TV and the internet.
Yeah, but it's a media term.
But I've never met anyone who's Islamophobic, so I don't really know.
Canada, I feel no racism. Anyone can practice their religion openly. There's no Islamophobia or anything. Like there are maybe some people in some areas, but I live in Toronto. It's a very multicultural and big city with the different religions and ethnicities. And there's no such Islamophobia that I witnessed over there.
Yeah, due to the media, due to the reality today, like what's happening in Iraq and in Syria, and the way even some media actually sell it, goes to the most extremists and interview them and show this actually as like a reality, as a truth and general truth to the European public. And a lot of people actually just don't know anything. They're just people that are good people but ignorant, and they just take everything they are told in TV.
It varies because on one hand you have a lot of liberal media, and liberal media, they don't really focus on Islam, but they don't either paint it in a negative image. And on the other hand, you have like super conservative, like middle-aged white men media, and they're always like, anything that's different from us is scary. Anything that's different from us is going to attack us. But again, like I said, I don't know anyone who actually believes this because, especially in my generation, we consider the people who say these idiots, like uneducated idiots.
They sympathize with the general Muslim population most of the time, and they point out that ISIS are targeting Muslims mostly. A lot has to do with our Prime Minister, the newly elected Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's from the Liberal Party. He himself said that the biggest casualties of ISIS have been Muslims. So, like, it's a very positive image in Canada.
No, it's not racist. I think New York, especially like Barcelona, it's super cosmopolitan, so you have people from everywhere. It's really hard to be racist if you live in New York because you're surrounded by all different types of people.
America, there is great polarization of society. So a lot of liberal and Democrat people, they embrace you fully. They don't care about your skin or your religion or anything. But at the same time, there is a big underbelly in America, which is xenophobic and racist and Islamophobic, like you said. So they would, like, just by your skin color or by your name or by your religion, they would put hate towards you or think badly of you or dislike you or leave you away from a certain position because of that.
Well, that depends what Muslim government we're talking about. Like I prefer to live under the rules of Moroccan Muslim governments.
Whether or not they're Islam wouldn't matter to me. Is what kind of politics they use, what their policies were, how they run the country. I mean, for example, like we have Donald Trump right now, who's a complete idiot, and if he gets elected, I'm not going back. So, like, I don't care about your religion, I just care about how you run my country.
In order to know more about Islamophobia, we have our special guests in the studio, Dr. Sami Taya, the professor at Cairo University, and Dr. Laura Serbi, the professor at the UAB and the journalist at Political Communication. Welcome. Welcome, Dr. Sami.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Laura, to what extent would you believe that Islamophobia is a form of racism than in religious tolerance?
Of course, it is a form of religious intolerance. But basically, this is a form of ignorance. They say basically any kind of fear arises from ignorance. They say you don't know what you're talking about, so you have your prejudice. You really don't know how to imagine how the other would react and would act, so you feel like afraid. So it's interesting to see, and you said something very interesting in the introduction, that like how can you be afraid of a religion? That is to say, a religion is nothing, basically. I mean, with all my respect for religion, but it's a book and it's a set of beliefs. So there's nothing good and nothing wrong about a religion. And actually, all the religion, or at least all the monotheistic religion, look the same, or somehow teach more or less the same. So of course, Islam cannot be good or bad. Of course, there can be a misinterpretation or a political manipulation or a political usage of a religion. What happened? Of course, since we don't know, like, how many people actually read the Quran? None of us in Europe. So of course, when you hear certain news, like, of course, Islamophobia started arising, first of all, when masses of immigrants started entering in the European Union. So we get to know somebody who has different tradition, and it's very easy to say this tradition does not belong to me, this tradition is different from mine, so it's bad, right? It's very easy because we don't have enough knowledge. And in the last few years, of course, because of the Daesh, of Islamic State. So of course it's very easy, if you're not informed, to confuse a political misusage of a religion and the religion itself. So in this case, the most important thing is understanding each other, and in this case the media plays a very important role, because of course if you haven't read the Quran in your life and you hear something like, and it's very fashionable to say it in a way, the Quran says that you have to beat your wife. It's true, the Bible says exactly the same, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to take it literally and we need to bite people. It's just something that was written centuries ago, so possibly under that society that was acceptable. Nowadays we need to understand it as a metaphor, of course. But of course, if you don't have enough knowledge, it's easy to get misinformed and to get scared.
So Dr. Sami, social media is a platform just like the TV, the new platform that internet introduced it to us. So do you believe that the younger generation perceive the news different from the older generation?
Of course, it's out of question that we have different understanding for different topics. And I would like to add something to what Dr. Laura just mentioned about the ignorance. You know, I think these Islamophobia usually comes from the ignorance. And I would like to add one more point, which is stereotypes. And when you say stereotypes, it means that, you know, these are images about each other which are formed during ages and ages. They are not formed overnight, but they are formed, you know, over ages. And I would blame ignorance, number one, and these stereotypes for these Islamophobia. But nowadays, with these social media and everything, I think it's even more dangerous, you know. So I think the key or the solution for this problem is to try to raise awareness about what we call the media and information literacy. I mean, we need to educate people on how to deal with the media, how to have some kind of critical thinking about what they see in the media, how to criticize the different media contents.
Yeah, but my question was, I meant, does the older generation perceive the news differently from the younger generation? Do they react differently from the younger generation?
Of course.
So whom of them is the most violent towards people?
I think, you know, young people, because they travel a lot and they are quite open to the new media, they are less affected by the media than the older generations. I think this Islamophobia is mainly, you know, I think it's rooted in the older generations. I think that the young generation, they are more open to different thoughts and different schools of thinking and everything, and therefore I think, you know, with the new media, it's a belief that, you know, the young people, they are less affected by these Islamophobia. But again, I would say that both old and new generation, they need some kind of media and information literacy, so that they can, you know, we can avoid the negative effects of mass media on them.
So, Dr. Laura, in your point of view, how do you think the Paris attacks and Belgium attacks both affected the Muslim communities in Europe?
Well, of course, this is a big problem. Well, let me start with something. Right after the Paris attack, in France there was an election, and everybody was scared to death that Marine Le Pen, that is to say the Front National, the far right-wing party, would win. And France, actually French people, showed that democracy is always way more powerful than racism, because Marine Le Pen didn't win. And that was a very emotional moment. You know, when you get emotional, you get scared, people tend, or we may think that people tend to have an emotional response. So it's like, these people are bad, they're all bad, so let's go to the right wing. And they didn't do so. So that means, I totally agree with what Dr. Sami was saying, like, with enough information, you can solve the problem. That is to say, of course, nowadays, it's very easy for certain parties, and it's happening sadly all around Europe. Certain right-wing parties are actually catalyzing people's fear and people's anger, catalyzing, like inventing an enemy. So it's just about immigrants. That it's kind of somehow, let me be sarcastic, funny, because like immigrant does not necessarily mean Muslim, right? I'm an immigrant in Spain, but nobody perceived me as an immigrant. But right-wing party would say all this attack happens because we allow them to come in, and when they say them, they don't specify exactly who them are. So it's kind of somehow funny. But of course, once again, oversimplify works when there's an emotional moment. So in Belgium nowadays, people are very scared. In France, people are very scared. But once again, through information, and everybody, and in this case, I would like to say that I think that Muslim themselves has an important role to basically teach the other that Islam is not what the Daesh is saying, because many people may be ignorant, and it's. I mean, of course, we should educate people, but still, you cannot have enough information about that. So it's part of the Muslim, like the good Muslim job to do that. Actually, there was a campaign that I really like a lot that was Not in My Name. After the Paris attack, many people, like many Islamic people, started a social media campaign with a poster with an hashtag Not in My Name, that is to say, this is not my Islam.
Yes.
So like, let's be clear on that. So it's very important on both sides to be very clear on that, so that we can somehow, let me just use a medical comparison, isolate the virus. They say it's very important for like the Western side to recognize that ISIS has absolutely nothing to see with Islam. It's like saying that if a murderer says that he's Catholic, it's Catholicism fault. That of course it's like completely pointless. So ISIS has nothing to see with Islam, but it's important on the other side that like democratic Muslim country would come out and clearly say this has nothing to see with Islam. So it's once again a matter of information. But I still believe that people have like another perception. Like in France taught this. We still have a lot of right-wing movement arising, but still by now it's controlled. So we really need to focus, as Sami was saying, on media and information literacy, on using the social network to teach people, to explain to people that it's completely different. And this is a very important task for all of us, actually.
So Dr. Sami, she just mentioned the elections. Donald Trump, the American candidate for the American presidency elections, has a big base of supporters and voters lately. So do you think that Trump succeeded in getting all these votes because he promised to kick Muslims out of America? And did he succeed to get the hate towards Islam from Americans?
I think it's mainly a media business, you know. I doubt if he would win.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the end of the day he would lose, you know, that's not a question. But of course, as fingers of one hand are not the same.
Yeah.
They are different. But he managed to gather some support from the racist.
But he has many supporters.
We can't say many, but he has some support. Of course, because we can say that he has many supporters because the competitor is not that strong. I mean, people who are competing with him in the Republican Party are not that strong. Yeah. That's why he managed to win them. He has money, he's a businessman, and he controls the media. That's one thing. Number two, I won't say, I cannot accuse the American of being racist. I've been in America many times, and I feel that the American people, they are very sociable people and very, they are open to know about other people. And here I think it's very important for some of our centers, such as the Islamic Center in London or the Cultural Center in Brussels or wherever. We have a hell of a lot of cultural centers. I think it's time now for these centers, as Laura just mentioned, to provide more information on Islam and on tolerance and on this and that. So therefore, I think, talking about Trump, it's a media business,
Yeah.
In the end of the day, he will not win.
Yeah.
But he managed to buy some media, and the media which he bought, they are portraying him in a very, positive image. But I can't say that the American people are racist or they hate other people. No. America is home for everybody, and they receive people from all over the world, and they are there, they accommodate them, and they give them jobs and everything. So therefore, I think we have to be very careful in dealing with what we see on the media.
Yeah. So Dr. Laura, finally I would like to ask you, if all Muslims are not terrorists, are all terrorists Muslims?
Of course, no. I mean, and this is exactly what we were talking about. This is like a misconception coming from, I wouldn't say all the media, coming from some media. I insist, it's like if tomorrow somebody who's Christian murders somebody else and we say Christianity is murder, it's like, it's or like saying a murder is blonde and we happen to say that all the blonde people are murderers. Like, it's really ridiculous. But I insist, and I would go further on this and what Dr. Sami was saying. It's still a matter of giving information. And we need to put this effort on both sides. And this is very important because sometimes, I mean, I always think that in any cases, on any issue, we should really, really focus on both sides. So I totally understand that, like, for example, from a Muslim perspective, it's very insulting to even think that somebody may think that being a Muslim means to be a terrorist.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I think that it's very important to understand that if this happens, it's because, of course, there's a media manipulation. But it's also because sometimes, I'm not saying always, but sometimes even the most democratic Muslim countries are not being clear enough on saying this is not our Islam, this is not what we want. I mean, like, average people are doing a great job, but sometimes I would suggest to have more institutional engagement. Because of course, you know, like all this campaign of like kids saying not in my name is great, but if I don't hear a country like Egypt, a country like any other Muslim country saying clearly, these people are murderers, these people have nothing to see with our religion, these people actually are using religion for economical things, because by the end we're talking about economy. They're not fighting for the prophet, they're not fighting for God, they're fighting for oil. And that's it. So let's make it clear. And sometimes, of course, from the media perspective, you mentioned Donald Trump. This topic is very mediatic. That is to say, it's very easy to build up a media circus on that. Think about the cases of foreign fighters. It's kind of, once again, funny in a sarcastic way. How many foreign fighters left from Europe to go to Syria? We're talking about approximately 27 people. And if you read the media, it seems that, wow, there's foreign fighters all over. I mean, these 27 people should be treated psychiatrically. This is a psychiatric problem. I mean, these people are completely nuts. And I am saying it without my respect. It's like, these people are crazy. So talk to a psychiatrist. So possibly, if this guy wouldn't happen in Syria, it would have happened to be a sexual harasser, a murder, because these people are crazy. But you cannot say that we have an emergency in Europe because everybody now is taking their baggages and going to Syria. So the media should focus on like really giving the news the way they are. Institutions should really focus on teaching the people what Islam is. Like nowadays, we had a lot of Muslim immigrants throughout Europe. Why don't we work in primary school, for example, to teaching what Islam is and what Islam is not?
Yeah.
But on the other side, even Muslim countries and Muslim as a community should really work on clearly saying this is not what Islam is about. So it's really like a common effort. And if we work together, it's going to be easy, because by the end, going back to what Sami was saying about stereotyping, I mean, stereotyping arises from ignorance. You don't know something, so you use a stereotype. If you happen to meet somebody, you will say that, wow, it was completely different. It's like saying, I'm Italian, like all the Italians eat pizza. Possibly, if you go to Italy, you end up discovering that, of course, we do eat pizza, but it's not the only thing that we do, right? So it's just helping people knowing each other.
So we can conclude that media is a key player in forming all the stereotypes and everything.
Of course.
Okay, I would like to thank you, Dr. Laura.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. Sami.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank you all for your time, and goodbye.